all the speakers. It's a part of the series of events that IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which is a 115-year-old leading Chamber of Commerce, and NCDEX, India's leading agri-commodity derivatives exchange, we've been doing for the last, in fact, several years, and over the last several months, we have done these events every month, and hopefully we'll do in the coming months also. Without much ado, I want to request IMC President Mr. Juzar Khurakiwala to deliver his presidential welcome address. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chandrasekhar, and good evening to everybody. Good evening to all participants. It's a very important topic, linking Indian agriculture to monsoons. Monsoons are very, very critical for all of us. As a matter of fact, our financial year, Kharif and Rabi, is set on the financial year April-March, which depicts Kharif and Rabi seasons, as a matter of fact. So it is indeed a pleasure to extend a very hearty welcome to each one of you to this Kharif Crop Outlook, a key annual event of the Indian Merchants Chamber. This year, this interesting event is organized by IMC Agriculture and Food Processing Committee in association with NCDEX, IPFT. We all recognize that agriculture is an important sector from both economic and social standpoints, as it contributes around more than 15% of India's GDP, but provides livelihood to well over 50% of our country's workforce. Developments in the farm sector impact many sectors of the economy that have linkages to locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. Also, agriculture output and prices have a bearing on inflation. Amidst the economic, social, and medical challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, farm activities have remained less affected. Agriculture continues to be a beacon of hope in these tough times. The onset and progress of southwest monsoon impacts agriculture crops prospects in our country, and also exerts an effect on rural life, rural incomes, and food inflation. This year, contrary to the initial forecast, the progress of the southwest monsoon has been less than satisfactory, with deficient rains overall. It's only recently that we are seeing a lot of rains in north and in western part of the country. But I genuinely believe in the long run, growth in the agriculture sector will ensure India's food security and supply chain in a self-sufficient manner. It will also contribute to the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat, or a self-reliant India. It is appropriate time for us to examine the Kharif 2021 crop prospects. Today, an elite panel of experts will discuss the outlook for major Kharif season crops, its implication for food availability, and effective measures to address the price risk in agri-commodities. So let us hear it from our expert speakers. I would like to welcome all the speakers: Air Vice Marshal G.P. Sharma, President, Meteorology and Climate Change, Skymet and Weather Services Limited; Mr. Aline Mukherjee, COO, NICR and EVP, NCDX; Mr. Suresh Devnani, CBO, Samunnati Agro Solutions Private Limited; and of course our own Mr. G. Chandrasekhar, Economic Advisor, IMC and Director of IMC ERPF. Before I conclude, I would like to say a few words for those who are not aware of IMC. The Chamber has a rich historic legacy and has exclusively served the interests of Indian business community for the past 114 years. This esteemed institution was founded on September 7, 1907 by few Indian merchants who came together to establish a Swadeshi institution to fight for the rights of Swadeshi businesses. Over the years, a galaxy of leaders, both Indian and international, including presidents and prime ministers, have adorned the chamber by their visits. Since its inception, the chamber represents the voice of over 400,000 businesses and industry establishments across India from diverse sectors of industry, with its membership of over 2,000 members and over 150 trade associations affiliated with it. I would like to thank your the staff at IMC for organizing this and Mr. Chandrasekhar to lead the event. Thank you very much and good evening to all of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this wonderful and inspiring welcome address. You've set the tone for the seminar. Thank you very much once again. Without much ado, I think we need to take off. I have a short presentation to make. I'm going to share screen now, which is, yes, the share, and therefore it's here. Slideshow. I'm going to the first slide. Okay. Once again, welcome to this webinar on Kharif 2021 crop prospects and price risk management, and how critical is Southwest monsoon and how the derivatives market can actually help us de-risk agribusiness, etc. A very important point at the risk of repetition, our president mentioned, but I want to repeat that IMC Chamber of Commerce is a SEBI accredited training institution for commodity derivatives. And therefore, in that capacity, we do a number of events. We work with a number of institutions and commodity exchanges, farmer producer organizations, etc., etc. And we are so happy that we have a chance to work with NCDEX. And I'm sure this relationship will continue. So let's straight away jump onto the topic. Now, all of us are talking about how critical the monsoon is, the rainfall is, the Southwest monsoon in particular. Why is it important? It is important simply because it is a critical driver of our farm output, whether it is paddy, that is rice or pulses or core cereals like bajra or makai, ragi, whatever, millets, or whether it is oil seeds like groundnut and soybean, and cotton, of course, and sugar cane. All these are major Kharif season crops. And therefore, Southwest monsoon is a critical driver of these crops. The behavior of Southwest monsoon, the temporal and spatial distribution of rainfall between June and September has a significant impact on yields and on production. And if the Southwest monsoon performs well, and if we harvest good Kharif crops, obviously the rural incomes would go up, and that will bring more of rural prosperity. And that's exactly why the monsoon rains are very, very important, very critical for our country. Again, as our president mentioned, while agriculture accounts for just about 14, 15 or 16% of the GDP, it employs more than 50% of our workforce. And therefore, because more than 50% of the country's workforce X out its livelihood through agriculture and of course related activities like poultry, fisheries, livestock, etc. I think it is important that this sector has to grow. This sector has to de-risk itself, and all the stakeholders must benefit. And that's why agriculture is important for its potential to generate employment and incomes. And another point which I emphasize all the time is that agriculture is also critical for equitable and inclusive growth. We have been talking over the last 10 or 15 years about equitable growth and inclusive growth. And we will have equitable growth. The benefits of economic liberalization will have to flow equitably to the entire population. And therefore, if agriculture grows well, lot more people will earn lot more income, then that will make for equitable distribution of income and of course inclusive growth. And that's why every year at the IMC we do this event invariably Kharif crop outlook, and of course for the Rabi season we do the Rabi crop outlook. Next one. Now this year the forecast of the Southwest monsoon was the IMD, India Meteorological Department, had said that it will be above normal. First they said it will be normal. That was by mid-April. then towards the end of May, they said it'll be even better. It'll be above normal, which is 101% of the long period average. And the long period average is 880 millimeters. Okay. And therefore, the IMD had forecast about a normal rainfall between June and September. Now, I was looking at the IMD. I was looking at the Central Weather Watch Group report, weekly report, etc. As of September 10th, across India, there is a deficiency of rainfall to the extent of 7%. The next report should actually be coming tonight, later tonight. We don't know what the status is. It did rain in the last 3 or 4 days, last 1 week, maybe in Gujarat and certain other parts of the country. But the last available public information as of 10 September shows that the country has faced a 7% deficiency in rainfall. The country is divided into 36 meteorological subdivisions, of which, as of 10 September, at least 10 subdivisions showed deficit, which covered Gujarat, Western Rajasthan, Eastern MP, Western UP, and Odisha. And in some other cases, I find they're all in borderline. They may be technically in the normal zone, but they're very close to getting into the deficient zone. So they're all, I call them borderline cases. So this is a reality which we need to accept. Now we should also look at the price behavior, agriculture commodity market price behavior over the last, since the beginning of this year, beginning of this calendar year. We are affected not only by our domestic market demand and supply fundamentals, our production and consumption, etc. But global cues are also impacting. Global cues are also impacting our agriculture market. For example, last year, Southeast Asia and South Asia faced La Nina, which brought slightly extra or excess rainfall, which was very good for our country. But the same La Nina created dry conditions in South America. October, November, December 2020, South America faced dry conditions, as a result of which there was a serious shortfall in soybean and corn and wheat and cotton, etc., in Argentina and Brazil, etc. Even the Black Sea region, Russia and Ukraine faced dry conditions, and therefore sunflower seed production was down in Ukraine, for example. Therefore, weather conditions in the last 8 to 10 months have certainly impacted global production, and because our markets are integrated with the global market, that effect is being felt in our country also. And therefore, global supplies are tightening. Agriculture commodities supplies are tightening. Be it wheat, be it corn, soybean, palm oil, cocoa, coffee, you name it. I think the supplies are tightening. The situation is exacerbated by high crude oil prices. As we all know, Brent is currently some $74 or $75 a barrel, and high crude oil prices definitely have a direct bearing on
import realization, pulses, veg oil, and GM soil.
Yes.
And therefore, high crude oil prices definitely impact agriculture commodities directly through the synthetic fertilizer and through mechanized agriculture. Cost of mechanized agriculture goes up. Okay, and therefore, plus there is an incentive to divert vegetable oils for biodiesel purposes and for biofuel purposes, both ethanol and biodiesel. And that also raises agriculture commodity prices. All this creates inflation risk, and that is why India has liberalized its imports. We have liberalized edible oil import, which was already liberal. Now we are allowing even refined oils to come in. We have liberalized import of pulses, of pigeon pea and urad and moong, etc. Lentils import has been liberalized. Recently, the government of India allowed 1.2 million tons of genetically modified soybean meal, which is unthinkable until recently, and therefore there is a change of mind. So imports have been liberalized. That is the effect of the global market dynamics on the Indian market. Now this is the satellite picture which I captured from the IMD. Again, as of 8th, you can see very clearly Gujarat, parts of Madhya Pradesh, parts of UP, the whole of Odisha, and some regions of Northeast. They are all actually red in color. Even probably Punjab. And therefore, I think as of 8th or 9th of September, there certainly was deficiency in rain.
Yeah, normal.
Let's go to the next one. Okay.
Normal
now, this is my slide. This is my slide for the area. Again, this is the source is the Government of India, Ministry of Agriculture. As of 8 September, in terms of million hectares, we find in case of pulses, there is a 300,000 hectare increase in pulses seeding this season in India. Obviously, pulses prices have remained high, and therefore it is quite natural that one can expect a small increase in the area planted to pulses. In case of coarse grains, of course, I think there is certainly a small decline of about 400,000 hectares. But within coarse grains, maize is most important. Maize area within coarse grains is about 8.1 million hectares, which is by and large unchanged from last year. Oil seeds, we have two very important oil seeds in the Kharif season. One is soybean, the second one is groundnut. And in case of soybean, the crop area is 12.2 million hectares as of 8 September. Again, largely unchanged from last year. But this SOPA came out with a report only 2 or 3 days ago, saying that the area may be 12.2 million hectares, but at least 700,000 hectares, the crop is completely lost. Okay, the effective area obviously will be something like 1.15 or whatever, 122 to 115 lakh or 11.5 million hectares is actual area for soybean. We also know that there was a tightness in soya seed availability even at the beginning of the planting season. Cotton is a shocking story for me. The cotton has lost about 8 lakh hectares or 800,000 hectares. Last year was a record 12.7 million hectares. This year it is down to 11.9 million hectares. Obviously, it will have an impact on production, and with the aberrations and rainfall, even yields may be affected. Sugarcane, of course, is a long duration crop, 12-month crop, which is shown 100,000 hectare increase in 2021. Although I'm not a great fan of sugarcane because it's a great water guzzler and we are producing more sugar than we need, and we are struggling to liquidate the stocks, and we are subsidizing sugar exports, which means we are actually exporting water. But anyway, these are a different question altogether. Therefore, Kharif acreage numbers are here. I'm going now straight away to the Kharif. My estimate of Kharif production, fairly informed estimate. In case of pulses, the Agriculture Ministry's target is 9.8 million tons for this Kharif season. My estimate of production of pulses is between 8 and 8.5 million tons, vis-a-vis last year's 8.7 million tons of the Agriculture Ministry. In case of coarse grains, the target is 37.3 million tons. My estimate is 35 to 35.5 million tons of production versus last year's 36.5. Oil seeds are unfortunately not going to be performing so well, although we desperately need oil seeds more oil seeds in our country. The target is 26.2 million tons. My estimate of production is anything between 20 and 22 million tons. Specifically of soybean, I would think I'll put my estimate between 105 and 110. That is 10.5 and 11 million tons of soybean crop in particular, vis-a-vis last year's total oilseed production of 24 million tons. Cotton target is 37 million bales. Each bale is of 170 kilogram, but we are not going to be reaching the target at all. At best, it can be 35 million bales. It will range between possibly 34 and 35 million bales, vis-a-vis last year's 35.4 million bales. And sugarcane, of course, we'll do quite well. It'll be 390 to 400 million tons of sugarcane, which will give us 30 to 31 million tons of sugar. We will have 5 or 6 million tons of extra sugar. I'm sure we won't know. We won't know what to do with that. We will have to export. Anyway, that's another story. For these, therefore, the targets are fixed by the Ministry of Agriculture. Output estimate is my estimate for Kharif 2021. The government of India usually issues the first advance estimate for the Kharif season sometime in the last week of September, and I'm hoping by next week we should get the first advance estimate from the Ministry of Agriculture. I think with this I will stop. I want to thank, of course, everyone for the chance given to me. I usually issue a disclaimer. I am not a trader. I don't hold any trading position anywhere, neither in the physical market nor in the futures market. I'm a student of the commodity market, and often I'm also a teacher of the commodity market. I teach markets, and with this, let me say good luck. God bless you all. I want to now invite Air Marshal Sharma to talk about his perspective, SkyMet's perspective, what has happened to the weather, how critical is the southwest monsoon, how has it behaved, and what else are his thoughts about the crop conditions. Air Marshal, the floor is yours.
So please unmute. There is some network issue.
Is he facing network issue?
Yeah, this one. Are you hearing me now?
Oh yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. There was some glitch.
Oh, that's fine. Oh, welcome. Yeah.
Should I start?
Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have been asked to speak on it's a pleasant feel at the moment.
Air Marshal, I have a suggestion, if you don't mind. If you don't mind, I have a suggestion. Your voice is breaking. Maybe you have a bandwidth issue which is unstable.
I'm disappointed.
And therefore, if you stop your video, then your voice will come out clearly, is what I think.
Are you hearing me now? I have stopped my video now.
Yes,
Yes,
very
sir,
clearly.
yes, sir.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So I was saying this monsoon season
No, we can't hear.
Sir, can't hear you.
Air Marshal, can I make a request again? The request is, do you hear me? Air Marshal? Air Marshal, do you hear me? I think I suspect is gone off the line. Anita, what do you think?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We can see him.
Air Marshal?
There are-
Air Marshal, I think let us allow, if you don't mind, let us allow Suresh to speak. And
there are,
hopefully by that
I'm
time, your system will
getting you
become
all right.
stable. Okay.
I think there are some
If
issues.
you try switching to the mobile hotspot also, those are quite
About-
stable these days.
No, Air Marshal, I'm suggesting let us allow Suresh to speak now.
Okay,
And in the meanwhile, you can switch on to the mobile hotspot. So you'll have about 10, 12 minutes time. Is that okay?
you can.
I think Suresh, you should start.
That's fine.
Yeah, Mr. Sharma, with your kind permission, by the time we actually
Yes,
fix the glitch, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting Samunati. It's a pleasure always to be in the same platform as Chandrasekhar ji and all the eminent personalities. Great chance to Chandrasekhar ji specifically. Always a privilege to hear your take on the economy, the agri sector that you've been covering for so many years. In a gist, you provide, what is your view on how things are, and many of the times we see that actually turning out to be true at the end of the season. So thank you, this was good. I may pick up on a few words that you used in your presentation because they fit in appropriately. You talked about inclusive growth. So yes, when I talk about Samunati stands for inclusive growth and collective prosperity. So it was very touching to see the same kind of ethos mentioned. I was hoping to hear Mr. Sharma because he would have given an in-depth knowledge about how the monsoon has progressed and where we are. That in continuation after your forecast would have made a lot of sense, but we'll wait for the right time. In the meanwhile, I'll just touch upon the theme of the topic, Southwest monsoon, farmers, uncertainties, and what can actually happen. So Southwest monsoons, needless to say, in India, agri dependency has been great. India has been fairly an agrarian economy. Not to talk about the population dependency on that, but overall in the Southwest monsoon, about 75% of the rains are received, and that actually is one which sustains India. We've been blessed with a few normal monsoons, and we should be grateful for that because we've seen in the lockdown that agri sector has been the one which has been the most resilient because this is something which is consumed, everybody needs it, the demand was always there, and people who could adapt to the newer ways of marketing and things. So agri has a definite role to play in sustaining the overall GDP of the country, and will always play an important role in the target that the government has set for itself of achieving the 5 trillion economy. So, but one thing which is also emerging in the last few monsoons is that beside the total quantum and the temporal and spatial distribution, as Chandrasekhar mentioned, we've seen a pattern that, there is a timely arrival, there is suddenly a pause in between, and then there is an onset which continues a little later, and the withdrawal is a little later. So we will very eagerly have to monitor that how this impacts not only the Kharif, because Kharif is the immediate recipient of this, but how the soil will react in the Rabi season, because now we are seeing late withdrawal of monsoon. So the soil condition and how the richness is maintained, and those things have to be. So I think the climate changes are now showing us different things that are going to be affecting, and we have to be ready for the more uncertainties which lie ahead, not only for us, but basically for the farmers, the farming community, who is going to be bearing the direct impact of this. The impact of monsoon, needless to say, affects directly. India once was a deficit country. Now, due to whatever steps and the adequate rains that are happening, India is now able to export a lot of food grains. So there is a direct impact on the forex also earned. So the normal monsoons are always going to be very critical for any economy. The catchment areas have to be there because rest of the household requirements and all those things are always going to be dependent on that. It's not directly rain fed, but there are many which are irrigation fed and so on and so forth. So the importance of monsoon, I think I will leave it to Sharma sir to come and again take it from there on. But the risks, I mean, what are the risks which are being faced by farmers, and there are a lot of things which need to be done. It's nothing new, but we have been talking over and over. Steps have been taken. There are many entities taking steps towards it. There are many policy decisions being taken, but still the works continue. Work needs to be continued in the tempo that has been set. So, needless to talk about the production risk, it is always going to be weather dependent. It's always going to be dependent on the vagaries which they are exposed to. We just talked about how there is suddenly a lull patch. It actually depends on how is the final production coming out in terms of the quantum, in terms of the quality, in terms of certain areas which get, it's always going to be dependent on the pests and those things also. So the production risk is one thing which farmers always carry. The price or the market risk, they have always been subject to the price and market risk, which is not only dependent on the output of a particular season, but many other factors also. If it is a free economy, if there is import suddenly, or if it is across the country also, the production in the other areas, which is not actually in the same area as the farmer, if there is a surplus, then suddenly the prices tend to get suppressed, and that's what affects his realization. Financial and credit risk, yes, it still continues to be a sector where not many people are happily willing to increase their exposure, go out aggressively and lend, because it is thought to be a very dangerous sector. It is thought to be a little uncertain sector. That is a risk which they always carry. The right amounts of money being available at the right time, because availability has to be at the right time. When we talk about pre-harvest, we talk about sowing, we talk about during this and the harvest. Every stage there is a requirement of capital, and the money has to be available in the right proportions at the right times for them to be procuring the right quantities before the season, during the season, and post-harvest to be able to help them to hold on to the crop, not sell it in despair and then wait for. And of course, there are other tools which are available, which I think we'll cover in due course. Regulatory and institutional risk. There are certain subsidy changes which keep happening. There are import and export duties which keep on happening, which affect the price, which directly impact a farmer and their realizations. A technology risk, if some of the farmers have been technology a little savvy through the FPOs, they've been going out, reaching direct markets. There have been many startups which have come up with platforms which are connecting them directly to the larger corporates. We've seen some farm laws which were directed in that direction, that they should be getting access to the larger market directly, not being dependent on the small market, which is always been available for them, the mandis or the local traders. So I think there are a lot of risks which they carry, and everybody has to think through as to how we help them. And I'll come to how Samanthi has been slowly playing a role, because walking the talk has to be the thing. It's not only about the suggestions, but who takes the initiative, who takes it forward, who takes the entire crowd forward is going to be something which is going to see this sector elevate a little bit. The farmers, I think the few things that they need to take care of to boost their quality, their output, their price realization is always going to be taking care of the yield, taking care of the quality, and then trying to see how to get a better price. Yield will always be dependent on, you procure the right kind of quality seeds. You don't go for what is locally available, the lowest quality, try to save costs there, try to save costs on some of the substandard fertilizers, and then finally what you end up getting is a poor quality crop, which will affect your entire realization. So I think this is something which they need to focus upon. Improving quality. Quality again will depend upon the timely sowing. They need to plan well in advance to get the right finances available, the right channel partners available. The inputs have to be right there when the sowing has to be done. And then the cycle has to be naturally progressed. That's going to be affecting the quality and value addition. I mean, the price realization can be improved by doing a bit of value addition at the stage of harvesting itself. We've been talking about it. A lot of steps have been taken. Now the farmers are starting to put a small warehouse there, do a bit of processing, but that's exactly what is required. You don't sell the raw material as it is. You do a bit of value addition. You get into a little bit of storing, sorting, grading, packing, and then suddenly, because the entire value increase happens after that, and there is a lot of value chain which thrives on that. And if the FPOs are able to do something of that sort at the farm gate itself, at the point of harvesting itself, it'll help them get a much better realization. Besides this, the additional avenues which are available, the derivatives markets which are there, I think my colleague, our panel colleague, Aline, will talk more about how the exchanges and the regulators are taking a lot of steps to bring in more and more, which will not only help them to get a better realization, because that is one more option that they can choose from besides the normal markets, but also how they can use those newer tools or newer products which are being made available as insurance to their prices. So that is one thing which the farmers will have to keep continuously looking at and adapting to it. So certain things that the farmers can do in terms of on the larger scale, I think PPP is the way ahead. Public partnership plans will have to be rolled forward in a much larger way. We have seen we should be doing that to increase the efficiency of the value chain. It should be put into, I mean, there should be tax stops. There should be things which encourage the warehousing to be put near the production houses. The refrigerator vans where we are talking about perishable, we need to be connecting them to the larger market. So the startups which are providing all these need to have some incentives for them to think of how we can connect these markets. So a lot of things which can be thought about of boosting the agricultural system, improving the access of credit, technology, and markets. Again, the public sector lendings have to be encouraged more and more. The NBFCs which are doing that have to be looked with a different lens and have to be kind of given more support in the sense the co-lending can happen with a lot of public sector banks, which brings down the average cost for the final farmer, and thereby always these small NBFCs are the last mile connectivity. They are the carriers of credit for the last leg where the formal banking ecosystem is unable to reach. So these should be taken with that spirit, and a lot of incentives should be thought about that. And building farmer resilience to the environmental shocks. More insurance products have to be thought of. They are almost wiped off if there is a less than adequate crop happening, and so we have to think of more innovative products in terms of insurance and other alternatives like the derivatives markets which are doing their bit. Coming to Samunati is, as I told you, Samunati stands for inclusive growth and a collective elevation. We've been always doing activities. That is the core mission with which vision of the organization, that two things which make the markets work for the smallholder farmer. So everything right from the agri enterprises to the supply chain management, right up to the FPOs, and within FPOs also right from input financing to advisory. So the ethos or the approach which we have taken is AMLA approach. I have shared that in the previous ones also, but I would like to just touch upon some of the newer initiatives so that that shows that we are we're definitely walking the talk. And so some of the initiatives are that we have launched the Agri FinMart. This is a platform dedicated to make FPOs as an asset class, so that the people don't shy away. People look at it as an asset class, digitization of their records. We bring all the FPOs and all the lenders on one platform so that finally they have a choice to choose from where they would want to access the finance. And that will definitely bring more efficiency. That will bring more ease and convenience for them to avail of the finance. and it will definitely be a big boost for their availability of finance. Second is launching of an Agri Elevate platform. As an ecosystem player, we know there is a lot of system information asymmetry. A lot of information is localized, it is not widely available. So we have created a platform where for the first time, the entities can be listed and there will be reviews by the people who have had experience with them. And so that will be actually an incentive for people to boost or up their service standards, because everybody is going to be rating them. This will be available for all. And many of these initiatives are something where we don't have anything to, financially or commercially do, but it is just that this agri ecosystem, we are an agri value chain enabler. The agri value chain has to be operating at a higher equilibrium. So all these will be acting as enablers. There is one which we have launched as FPO Gateway, which is again a single port of call for the FPOs. FPOs will get an access not only to financiers, but all the service providers which are there. So once they get a part of the FPO gateway, they get to access everything from the platforms which are there, the insurance providers, the logistic providers, whichever are the service providers, they get an access through the FPO gateway. We've come out with Samunati Kisan Pay cards. Kisan Pay cards are again a way of providing credit through a card. Normally, we've seen that when money is handed over, there is a chance of misuse of money, either at the FPO level or there is a chance. I mean, if it's only intentional, only then. But if you give it through a credit card, which is to be utilized only in the intended establishments, maybe for the seed purchase, maybe for the fertilizer purchase, maybe for irrigation equipment purchase, then you have actually done your bit, because it is being utilized for the purpose it is supposed to be. And also makes them come into the mainstream. They are moved away from the cash economy to the mainstream economy, and that's how they become a part of the mainstream economy. We have started FDCs, which are called as Farmer Development Centers. This is a franchisee model with our partnership with eFresh Agri-Business Solution. So that's shops which are set up at the FPO centers itself. It will have everything from inputs to the outputs which are there, and they can aggregate, they can sell it. The corporate buyers can come and check the quality there. We've also installed a CCTV, so the trainings can be conducted at a larger level of all the developments that are happening. So one way to elevate them again. Again, keeping up with the ethos, we have started Amla centers. Amla centers are again aggregation centers. We will be starting in a larger scale in this Kharif crop itself, where in Maharashtra and MP and Rajasthan, when the soybean crop arrives, we will have Amla centers in place, which will help them aggregate, where the larger buyers will come in. We'll help them with the sorting, grading, and value addition process, by the way of which they will be able to get better realization. I'll just take half a minute more. And there is something more called as Krishi Value Hubs, which is further extension of the Amla centers, where we are helping them with more mechanization. It will be having a catchment area of 10 to 15 FPOs or villages, and one of them will be made as the hub FPO, which will be then have a center. We will put up a center there. The weighing machine, the sorting grading machines will be put up. There will be a small plot which will be there, which will be a demonstration plot, where we will actually put up the best of the practices in terms of seeds, fertilizers, and we can show them how this has worked. And from there, it will be a lesson for everybody how to. So it's a small scale industry through which we will try to create an. I mean, if there is a mill, we will have those inputs sent to the mill, get it. Besides this, there are some recent developments which are happening, which I am not supposed to be, but we are embarking on certain things where we will take all the initiatives or all the schemes which are launched at the central level. Many times, so many schemes are there, so many subsidies, so many benefits are there, they lie unutilized. So we will be taking forward that work of taking it down and educating them, helping them, and fulfilling all the compliances, everything. So more on that will be emerging. That and a few more things will be emerging in the next few days by press releases But those are certain things which show that, Samunati not only keeps an eye on what is required, but does a little bit about, what needs to be done. So thanks for the patient hearing, sir.
Thank you very much, Suresh. Thank you very much. I think very, very insightful. And I know Samunati is doing an awesome job. This country probably needs 1,000 Samunatis, okay, as an example. I think because chunautiyan bhi hai, there are challenges, and therefore I think this Samunati model probably can be replicated across India. But before I go to Air Marshal, I just want to make one or two observations which Suresh mentioned. One is to talk about extended southwest monsoon. Yes, we saw southwest monsoon extended till October, that is in 2020. We also saw that happen in 2019. I thought 2019 was an aberration. 2020 we had La Nina. La Nina typically brings extra rainfall in South Asia and Southeast Asia, and therefore 2020 can be explained by the La Nina phenomenon. So let's see what's going to happen this year. I want to share something, that there are incipient signals now that a possible La Nina is developing this year also in 2021. Okay, that is October, November, December. That a very weak, very early signals. So I don't know what's going to happen to the southwest monsoon. Possibly, Sharma Saab can throw light. Number one. Number two, very quickly, you talked about various risks. I usually talk about in a simple way. Everybody, the stakeholders face production risk, quality risk, market risk, exchange risk, etc. And all these risks, underlying risks, converge into one factor, which is the price. The price reflects all the other underlying risks. And therefore, if you're able to manage that price risk, you have automatically managed all the underlying risks. And that's the kind of communication I make. That point is very, very well made. There are several uncertainties and risks, but that converge into price, and you use the NCDEX platform for agriculture commodities to hedge that price risk, protect yourself from adverse price movement. Yeah, point very well taken. Thank you very much again, but I'm sure there'll be another round of talk for all of us. I'll now request Air Marshal to join. Sharma ji.
Thank you, sir. Extremely sorry for the technical glitch which I had. I hope my team has fixed that and it behaves now. Okay, to start with, we're saying that this monsoon this season has had almost a bumpy ride, very, very pulsating season. The forecast, as it was mentioned also, it was supposed to be a good normal, healthy normal. And monsoon, actually, it had walked in with the military punctuality, right on time. And it behaved quite well. It started in a very nice manner, very well behaved child rather. The first phase was very good, but then suddenly towards 2nd of June, it got bogged down over North India. Even National Capital had to wait for fairly long to have its first monsoon shower, almost 20 days. It was not budging, it was not moving, worrying everybody. But then still, despite all that, month of June ended with the surplus, that is 110% of LPA. And but then these cheers of June, they didn't last very long, because July started sinking. And it went down to even minus 10% pan-India deficiency, which is considered grave. But then good thing, silver lining, again in the month of July, started recovering and then came on track. By the end of the month, July, it was almost 0-0. That means it's covered up. Though the surplus of June was consumed, but then at least July ended with a deficiency of 7%. It is considered definitely significant, I will say. The surplus of June and a little somewhat decent month of July, I think the agri market was a little upbeat to start with. And as it was mentioned also, Chandrasekhar sir also mentioned the temporal and spatial distribution of rainfall. That was fairly okay to start with halfway through the season. But then all this was spoiled by August. August was a big dampener. Actually, the rains nearly vanished in that month. This is a core monsoon month. July and August are the core monsoon month, July being the rainiest, followed by August, and then no rains. And actually, the time when you needed them most, it was not there. And some of the subdivisions, obviously, they had similar to drought conditions. They had gone and so poor. And to start with, even I think Rajasthan and Gujarat, that was the worrying subdivisions. It was a large deficiencies that was there. And then some of the crops in those sectors, I believe it reached the brink of extinction also. The Rajasthan sector, the millets, pulses, and I believe in some of the district, even Goa, that crop that was nearly routed. In Gujarat, some of the groundnut that also suffered. They took a big hit. I don't know about, I'm not very sure about cotton, because cotton takes a little, it can take a little harsh condition for a little point of time, for some time, because I believe its roots, they go deep into the ground and then it can sustain for some. But then paddy definitely suffered in some pockets, be it Uttar Pradesh, be it Odisha, be it Telangana and Andhra Pradesh also, that was there. But then the good point which I saw was at least the rain-fed pocket, that is the core monsoon zone, the central parts of the country, particularly Maharashtra. These pockets actually behaved. Otherwise, drought-prone region of Marathwada, it saw fairly good rains in the month of July, Vidarbha also. So extremely good rains in the first half of the season over these pockets. It saved this region from the scare of large deficiency and drought conditions, which otherwise could have been there over that region. Now, as per our forecast also, the second half of the monsoon, that was supposed to be better than the first half. But then it didn't happen. It didn't start with. Month of August, as I said, it was a big dampener. The overall deficiency in the month of August, 24%, huge. Actually, since 2009, this is the largest deficiency which has been experienced in the month of August. And 2009, it was an El Nino year. It was a severe drought when the country faced with a deficiency of 22% when the season ended. So the scare is 2021 also going on the same track? But then fortunately, it stopped at August, and then we had some good rains in the month of September now. Though I feel that I think some irreparable loss has been done, damage has been done to the crops in some of the sectors. They cannot be recovered with the rains now in September, but at least these hefty and good rains possibly will do something good to the possibly the reservoir status, the water storage, the ground level, subsoil moisture. So at least for the next crop which has to come up, which has to be sown, Rabi crop, it will do something good to that as such. You see, this monsoon forecast of the second half, that was basically actually the complete monsoon forecast, but particularly the second half, when the revision took place, even SkyMet also revised our forecast. The forecast of a decent monsoon that was based on the oceanic parameters, which was mentioned also, El Nino, La Nina, that factor found a mention. So El Nino, and so was behaving right from the beginning. There was not a problem. But the IOD, which we call it as the Indian Ocean Dipole, or the Indian Nino, that is closer home in the Indian Ocean, that was defying all the time. First 3 months, right up to August, it was below the threshold value. It was negative, which was not favorable for having good monsoon rains. But then that also got aligned, and actually all three parameters got aligned, be it ENSO, be it IOD, and even the MGO, which visits shortly in a transition manner. they all fell in line, and then that is how it's behaving. Some month of September, so far it is 34% actually extra rain, surplus rains, which is huge. But then I think it is a little late in the season. But then still, some at least rains have been there in some pockets. Recovery has been done. The most deficit pockets which were there, Gujarat and Saurashtra, has also come up now. The deficiencies become to the normal bracket now. It was about in excess of 50% at one point of time. There was deficit pockets of Rajasthan and Gujarat in the west, possibly Punjab in the north, Orissa in the east, and then Kerala in south. These were the 4 quadrants. But then all have recovered, barring it's still some deficiencies there over parts of Orissa. It is there. But then Gujarat, yes, still Saurashtra and Kutch has caught up with the normal. But then Gujarat, parts of Gujarat, still about 28-29% deficiency that still persists over those pockets. But then the current state of the monsoon, as it was said that by 10th of September, 7% deficiency was there. As of today, it's about 4% now. And it is recovering, though it will have a little next 48 hours. I feel it is going to take a little subdued conditions could be there. But then again, it is promising that some more good rains will be there towards the fag end in the 3rd week also. So which is a good sign. Now, this is the current status of this, and as I said, this September hefty rains, actually the sudden burst of these rains may not be good for agriculture also in some pockets. Actually, when it happens on a one fine day, the runoff itself of that water, it doesn't suit the crops. It could possibly make damage also at some time, because the erosion may be there. The ground, it doesn't sink in the ground. It just runs off. So hefty rain doesn't mean that it will do good to all the time. It will do good. It may not do so. And rather moderate rains, intermittent rains at some regular interval could be moderate. They will do more good than these hefty rains which take place during the monsoon seasons as such. What we have seen, the type of pattern which we are seeing, the high intensity rains, high impact weather events becoming more frequent and intense. Obviously, you may be linking it with the weather change because of the climate which is taking place. Possibly what I feel is all these are becoming a little more frequent. We got to maybe learn to live with it in the coming time. These are going to be there. All indications are nothing much has been done from our side, from the mankind side, to reduce the impact of these events. So, and the monsoon variability, which I find in the last few years, it's large. And particularly this particular season has been totally different. Though no 2 monsoon seasons are same, but then the volatility was a little large in this particular season. What I saw, the monsoon was shifting gears very frequently, and that's what we have noticed in this particular season. And as far as it was mentioned by Chandrasekhar sir that La Nina conditions possibly may be there. Yes, you see, La Nina conditions last year also it was there. Normally these conditions they last for 9 to 12 months. They come up in the month of April, May or something around that, and they peak around October, November, and then once again start fading in the month of February or March next year. Similar pattern is expected this time. It's coming up. Entire Pacific region is cooling now. All the indices there, they are showing a little decline. Means the cooling will continue. The La Nina conditions are sure to come up. Almost, if not during the monsoon fag end now or the fall of year, definitely winter months by about December, Jan, Feb, we will have this La Nina. that itself will have impact on the weather conditions which we have on the Indian subcontinent. As it was mentioned also, the La Nina, it gives some good rains also in the winter rains, which are good for the next crop, but not for the Kharif. Possibly it may not be all that good. I think all is not lost in even in the Kharif also. Yes, it is not a bumper crop which was expected like the previous 2 seasons, but then still I think some recovery is there. And the coming up La Nina conditions will do something good to the next season. At least some rains will be good in the coming months as such. As far as the withdrawal of the monsoon, that also mention was made. You see, the earlier we used to have withdrawal to start around 1st of September before it was reviewed 2 years back by the India Met Department, and now the 17th of September, which is today, is the commencement of withdrawal, official commencement. So, but then there is no signs of that as of now. Okay, as it was mentioned, yes, we will have an extended monsoon season. Entire monsoon season withdrawal takes place actually complete from the country by 20th of October, when the next season actually is time to start for the northeast monsoon. But then for the northwestern parts and some pockets, even over the central region where it starts withdrawing, we could possibly see an extended monsoon season this time. The northern parts, particularly parts of Rajasthan, I will say, Gujarat, Rajasthan, and even some Punjab, Haryana, and adjacent Madhya Pradesh region is likely to see some extended monsoon, which possibly may be taken as a good sign as far as the rains are concerned, surplus rains are concerned. But then in any case, it's about another 2-3 weeks or so when the monsoon winds up. Officially 30th of September, it gets over, and then the rest is just a bonus which we get from the monsoon. I think with these, I close my this thing. I will be ready for any question answer in case they are there. So, yes, please. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Air Marshal, for this very insightful exposition. I think it's very, very important that you said. One is, I just want to reconfirm or confirm once again that my own sense was that another La Nina is probably knocking at our doors. And if I have heard you correctly, you confirm that there is a strong possibility of La Nina repeating this year in the last quarter, November, December, whatever. Now, one question that follows is if South Asia and Southeast Asia are going to face La Nina conditions, do you think once again South America will face dry conditions? I mean, that's a question that bothers me because that is what is going to decide global food inflation. So from that perspective, it may be good for India, but is it good for South America? And is it good for the world is a question that bothers me. I'm sure it should bother a lot of people. That was one. And second, you of course talked about and highlighted monsoon variability in India. Yeah, and all of us living through these times have experienced. We have seen how the variability of monsoon is their stark reality. In fact, climate change affects tropical nations much more. The adverse effects of climate change are felt much more in tropical nations, and India is a tropical nation, and therefore we are a lot more susceptible and vulnerable to the adverse consequences of climate change, and therefore we have got to be ready, and therefore we've got to plan. Aage 10-12-15 saal mein these things are going to happen more frequently. So are we spending enough money on seed research? Are we spending enough money on weather proofing or drought proofing our economy? Those are very, very big thoughts all of us have to engage with. But thank you very much for your presentation. Kindly stay on. Now I'm going to invite Aleen to talk about his perspective. He's in the midst of all the activity, hedging, risk management, running the commodity exchange, which is a great platform. And of course, he's also witnessing a huge amount of risk and uncertainty. Stakeholders have to come and manage their price risk through the platform. Aleen, what are your thoughts about Southwest monsoon impact on crop, risk management, price volatility? I think it's actually a big thought. Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chandrasekhar. And it's good that I am also speaking at the end, because the two important parts, actually three important parts, all the eminent panelists you all have already covered. And your point of that all these information actually culminates into the pricing. So and that becomes an important point. But as Air Vice Marshal Sharmaji was mentioning that the changes in the weather will happen. Similarly, so what it means is that changes in the prices also will happen. And so the question is, if we are trying to make ourselves maybe more resilient, because any impact of climate change or any untoward, to us it's untoward, to nature it may not be an untoward, because this might be over 1,000 period or 2,000 period of climatic condition. It could be quite natural, because we do not know when the cycle will happen, right? So given those points, as we have to create resilience in the climatic changes and build our ecosystem accordingly. Similarly, on the price front also, we have to build our resilience system. And interestingly, the tools are available. It is not that the tools are not available. And what we are seeing, I think, we need to see more and more such entities, more and more entities who are into this supply chain. Because there are three parts in that, in terms of the product producers, the in-between traders, and the end processors in that sense. So these three entities really need to make themselves resilient, right? So whatever tools which are available, and of course, certain tools needed to be provided by the government, certain tools needed to be provided by the private entities, and certain tools are needed to be adapted and done by the scientific community. So, for example, we talked about production risk. When we talk about production risk and the climate change, if you look at it, do we have the science following various kind of varietal development to adapt to those, the risk factors? So, these aspects really need to be. These are long-drawn challenges. I mean, this is not a short-term solutions. But the couple of practical aspects which I wanted to touch upon, I think you did touch upon initially in your presentation also, is the estimate part, right? So, and we have been seeing over a period of time, there is a lot of difference between the government estimate and a private estimate. And that is something I think really need to be looked into, because it's possible. I'm just putting up an hypothesis, because when government estimates through their planting records from the ground up, and maybe then crop cutting experiments, so spanned over 3-4 months. And the private estimates might be looking at from a market arrival point of view, because that is what is important. So what it means is that there is a certain number of produce which is already held back at a certain point in time. And as a policymaker and as a trader or as a business houses, frankly speaking, that is not visible. And if that particular aspect is not visible to the country as a large, then any price change will actually going to impact the whole supply chain. So maybe one aspect, I mean, for example, government now has mandated the pulses and the oilseed companies to put in their stock positions, right? So we really need to see that how and bring it in other cropping production and system, marketing system as well, so that as a country we know what is the stock positions, and that impacts the whole supply chain, that impacts the production decision, and maybe further planning for the processors, and ultimately reflects on the price point. So information is one of the key aspects to do that. The second, on the price risk also, I just wanted to add to what Suresh and what you also had mentioned, is if you look at the sudden change, for example, the pandemic has brought in, right? I mean, Now certain countries are opening up. I was reading a report, the whole freight situation has gone berserk. And if the freight situation has gone berserk and we are not being able to maybe export, which we do because we are now a surplus country in many of the commodities, and some of those commodities are being traded on the exchange platform, then automatically there is a supply, oversupply on the domestic market, right? Because the trader and the holder has to offload those. And so what happens to the prices? So automatically it will impact the whole price scenarios. So these aspect also needs to be looked into. The second aspect which we look at is you talked about the equitable distribution of income, right? I mean, yes, that is what everybody should strive for. 17 SDG goals which we need to look at and how we are performing. I think 24 I think is the time frame. But if you look at that, what exactly it means. So what it means to me personally is also that other than the sustainable agricultural aspect and the carbon footprint and carbon sequestration, if you only look at the income equitable distribution, I look at the larger percentage of consumer share, consumer price comes back to the farm gate, right? Now, if you look at from that angle, purely at that angle, that how larger share of the consumer price should come back to the farm gate, what it means is that the farm gate has to capture the value. For farm gate to capture the value, it is not possible, as we know, small and marginal landholders, right? It's very, very difficult. And kudos to people like Samunnati, entities like Samunnati who have just Suresh so nicely explained the kind of stuff they are trying to do at a farm gate level. And really, as you rightly pointed out, thousands of Samunnatis are required. So, but the numbers tell us a very bleak story. I mean, as you know, one of the biggest observation on these for the value capture is to look at the gross capital formation at a private and government level. And if you analyze the data for the past 5-7 years, it has been actually going down. So what it tells us is that the private GCF as well as the government GCF as a farm gate level is going down, So if that is going down, then how as a farmer or an FPO I am going to capture the value at a farm gate, right? Then I am basically another trader on the block, maybe procuring and then shipping out the commodity to the next value chain player, right? So not trying to add any value at a farm gate and trying to capture that. So that is a very, very, I think, important aspect to look at, the gross capital formation and how we can encourage this. Of course, there are a lot of schemes and AIF is a marvelous scheme. We surely look at that, how that comes in. Now, on the last and most important part, I think what we as an exchange look at. So I'm going to talk about the two parts, if you allow me a couple of more minutes. One is our work with the farmer producer organizations, right? So what we are seeing in the last year or so, though it was pandemic year and we haven't been able to travel, the team has only recently started traveling a little bit, but we have, as far as the number is concerned, we have much more encouraging numbers of farmer producer organizations and companies coming on fold. So it is slowly changing into the pull aspect. So that is something which we really cherish, and going forward, I'm sure that numbers will grow. So currently, for example, already more than 375 farmer producer organization who has been now part. Now, of course, there are other issue on the FPO side. I'm not going to talk about that. But if you look at the way they function, they have understood. We have almost 50 odd FPOs who regularly participate on their own, and that value captures through the price risk hedging. They are transmitting down to the shareholders. So that is a very encouraging trend which we have seen. We have also seen the farmer producer organization are understanding the quality aspects and realizing that there is a value capture possible. So they're seeking out the tools, grading sorting machines, or understanding the quality aspects, understanding the leadership aspects which is required to run an farmer producer company. So that we are seeing is a very encouraging tool. The second part, which is that from an exchange standpoint, the exchange has been always trying to innovate. And as you very well know, stickiness is a pretty, difficult aspect to have, because you do not know which particular product gets solves the right problem, even if though there has been enough research done. But I'm very happy to say that, our Soyadex and Guardex, which are the two index, which has taken away the fear of physical settlement, but still allows you to hedge as well as participate for your price risk management, is a very innovative tool. And though still on a lower side of that, but we are definitely seeing very encouraging result on these kind of indexes. And going forward, I think they would be also the mainstay. The second aspect is that the commodity which are being traded on the exchange platform, you have been tracking and following and discussing with us for a long time. As you know, that the sudden in and out or suspension of the commodities actually does not definitely bring in confidence level, but maybe some certain policy decision has to be taken. So given those scenarios, we really need to, the market really need to move towards contracts like options. That's much easier to understand, because at least for only do buy and managing your price risk. I'm not talking about from a larger complex option strategies for your investment aspects. So that put option for the sellers as well as call options for the buyers is an innovative tool which is now there in the marketplace. And we are again happy to say that there has been a lot of encouraging results. But then again, creating liquidity and stickiness takes a lot of effort and time, and exchanges putting in those aspects. The the other aspect is that we are also encouraging entities who are involved in the physical trade to use the basis trade mechanism to lock in their price, because at the end of the day, you do not have to take the full exposure of the price risk which are going to be there. And data of any number of years, if you pick up, these markets have been volatile, right? And not actually hedging is maybe a more speculative action rather than hedging. That's point number one. Point number two, if a lot of people feel uncomfortable in terms of, pure derivatives market, they can also look at how international organizations, the trading units, trading firms actually do basis contracts, right? So whenever any large shipment happens from cross country, any transaction happens, there are always a basis contracts, right? So maybe our Indian organizations also need to move towards that direction, that how to use these tools, market tools, which are already available, very well governed, very well laid out procedures, settlement mechanism, transparent. So how do we how do we utilize that? So I think opportunities in terms of market tools availability, opportunities in terms of regulation, opportunity in terms of ensuring that these markets are transparent, the prices are discovered properly, are there. And any disputes also, if they arise, they are solved not in the civic lawsuit time frame, but commercial time frame. So I think we do have, the Indian markets have price risk management, the exchanges have come a long way. And there are tools available, but what we have to now see that how these market players, the supply chain players, if the FPOs can do it, why not the SME or MSME sector, right? And one more last thought process. If you look at, I was reading through some of the statements. If you, for example, if you Google search that the risk management policies of international firms, you will find it's mandatory to have a CRO, right? It's mandatory to have a hedge accounting policy. It's mandatory to put up maybe your risk management statement, commodity price risk management statement in the public domain. So I think we really need to look at these positive examples. The regulator has done a lot, and as you know, the listed companies have to report, but as within the food ecosystem, how many food players are actually listed, right? So how do we bring those people to in the whole risk management aspect? And we are NCDX IPFT is definitely happy to partner with IMC to take this message forward. And hopefully with all of you, we would be able to continue this journey by creating awareness on this price risk management. Thank you for the opportunity. Would be happy to take up.
Thank you, Aline. Sure. Thank you, Aline, for a very insightful exposition. I think you touched upon various aspects. Obviously, you talked about how critical is the role of derivatives in for price risk management. In fact, my own experience with working with the FPOs is that we can't teach them what to grow, how to grow, what agronomy to do, and how to harvest. Not me anyway. I can't teach them. But what I found in my interaction with FPOs is what they lack is market outlook. And that is exactly what I do in my interaction with the FPOs, and through the IMC, we have done a few events in the last 2 or 3 years, and we discuss market outlook. We don't give them price targets, etc. We just tell them, we explain all the drivers of the market, the policies, etc., and say this is the likely direction. And that's the kind of input they appreciate. And many of them have even confirmed that they have benefited from this kind of input. I'm just sharing that with you because you're working with FPOs. And of course, IMC would be truly delighted to work even more closely with NCDX to specifically address the needs of FPOs. That was number one. And of course, our favorite statement, I'm sure you repeated, that hedging is not speculation. All the time, even 20 years down the line, people are still saying, "Arey, kya bazaar hai, satta market hai." Hedging is not speculation. If you don't hedge, you're speculating. Hedging is not speculation. Not hedging is speculation.
Absolutely.
For the value chain participant, if they don't hedge their price risk, and the price risk is staring them on their face, if they don't hedge the risk, obviously they are speculating, which is very important. And therefore, I think maybe we should work together to deliver some commercial intelligence and market outlook for FPOs, which is what is the need currently. And then that will encourage them to come on to the exchange platform and start trading on a bigger scale, on bigger numbers. Thank you very much. I think very, very interesting. I think each one of the panelists has brought out a certain very, very interesting perspective. And I'm happy Ashish Barwale, chairman of the IMC's Agribusiness Committee, has joined. He was traveling. I'm happy he's joined. Okay. Now I was wondering, Air Marshal, any more thoughts that you have in mind that you think you left out in your first speech that you want to share with the participants? Any comments, parting comments? I don't know if I can say that. Yeah.
You see, in your some observations or some comments which you made after I spoke. You mentioned that if the La Nina conditions are there, then the Asian countries, Southeast Asia, possibly this will be the weather conditions. Will it impact the other side of the globe, American? Obviously, because whether it is a El Nino or whether it is La Nina, it is not same. It doesn't impact in the same manner all pockets. It could be right opposite also. Like we keep mentioning, I tell you, this Indian Ocean dipole, which we call it as, which when it is positive, it is good for us. But if it is positive, it is not so good for Australia.
That's right, exactly.
And Indonesian region. So obviously, we will be definitely more concerned about our region, how the condition may be. But if it is good for me, it is going to be possibly adversely affect some other pockets.
Somebody else.
And these are global phenomena. And so this is what is happening this time. And what I see, what I feel is, irrespective of these conditions, which are very, very frequent nowadays, La Nina, El Nino, IOD, we have to build our resources. We have to be resilient enough to not depend mostly on this. We keep talking about rain-fed areas. For ages, we have been talking about. I do not know when are we going to come out of that. Okay. It's all monsoon. If monsoon brings the cheers, if it is good, and it spells doom and gloom in case it packs up. So I think we seriously consider taking some measures, whatever best, at least from 1 year to the next year. Every time we see floods will have to come to Bihar and possibly Northeast India, and they have to ravage the complete pocket. So my sincere wish that actually we do something realistically, and at least the roadmap which we make, it has to go on. And then let's see if it's a time consuming process. Nothing can be done for next year immediately, no, but at least for the next decade we can think of now, and which can be taken up, and hopefully that gives us the benefits of this. Yes, that's it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's extremely valid point. There are risks galore, uncertainties galore, and climate change is not an overnight phenomenon. It's a very slow poison. It's actually cancerous. And we are seeing over the last 10 years how it's spreading, how it's adversely affecting climate across the world, and of course even our own climate. And it's possibly going to get worse with weather variability and extreme weather in many parts of the world. There is no doubt at all. And then we need to plan. If we haven't actually weather-proofed our economy, we haven't drought-proofed our economy. We keep talking about it, but at least we need to talk. Unless we talk, raise concern, things are not going to move. Let me give a small example. Indian wheat. Indian wheat is at the limit of heat tolerance. If Jan and Feb temperatures in India were to rise by 1.5 degrees above average temperature, say day temperature should be 20-21 degrees. If they go to 23 degrees for an extended period of time, wheat yields risk a decline of 20% because it's at the limit of heat tolerance. Similarly, maize is also at the limit of heat tolerance. Are we working on these? Because we can't produce new seeds overnight. It's going to take 8-10 years of trial. Okay, and I think that's the kind of thought process that we are bringing. We are looking at all that. But while these are concerns, current concerns, but it will take a few years to find a good solution. There are immediate concerns, and the immediate concern primarily is price volatility for all the value chain participants, and to save the value chain participants from the adverse effects of price volatility. Obviously, you have a time-tested scientific method called hedging, and you have a wonderful platform called the NCDEX in our country. I've been associated with NCDEX since its inception, and I know the long road that they have crossed in the last 20 years and the kind of potential that that this exchange holds. But the challenges are daunting, and obviously we need to overcome those daunting challenges. Thank you very much, Air Marshal, for sharing your thoughts. Let me come to Suresh, and then I'll go to Ali. Suresh, any comments that you want to make that you might have missed in your first round?
No, sir, I think broadly everything is covered. I just want to say that Samonnati stands committed to taking forward the work and at a much larger scale. Initial years are always formative years, little difficulties. As you grow in scale, you then have the tendency to have larger collaborations, larger tie-ups, and carry forward the work in a much larger scale. So Samonnati stands committed in making this agri value chain in a more efficient place and making the markets work for smallholder farmers. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Now I'll invite Aline, and then we'll go into the chat box to see if there are any questions. Aline, the floor is yours.
Thanks. I think I missed a very important pillar in this whole ecosystem, which are banks, right?
So, yes, of course, absolutely.
And financial institution, including Samonnati, I think banks have a huge role to play, because when they lend to whether FPOs to or to the traders or to the processors, they have a real interest in the volatility of the raw material which is happening, right? I mean, so some methodology, of course, banks do manage their own risk system, but I think the raw material exposure, the price volatility exposure, banks can play a huge role, a huge positive role to ensure that the supply chain players are hedged through market tools. I mean, I think we going forward, we would like to see internationally these are there. It is not that it's not there. So we just need to look at these from the banking system. So that is one I missed. So
completely agree. Completely agree. I can't agree with you more. Banks are actually a critical part of the chain. And SEBI has taken a number of initiatives in the last 2 years for deepening and widening the market. Mutual funds are allowed, AIF category 3 is allowed, PMS is allowed, index trading is allowed, options trading is allowed. I think the next step ought to be that commercial banks should be allowed. I think SEBI is in principle ready. The call lies with the Reserve Bank of India. The Reserve Bank of India will have to decide that banks would will be allowed to trade commodity derivatives, because they have exposure to commodities, because they lend against commodities. In the US, of course, banks are allowed to trade commodity derivatives.
Not only that. Actually, I was trying to say that banks, with their agreement with the borrower, should ensure that their borrowers are hedged as well. So to prevent their capital.
In fact, this is an idea that banks should be allowed. Is an idea I mooted 10 or 12 years ago with Forward Markets Commission. I've written articles on that, and I had also said that if banks are not allowed, at least banks must insist on the borrower. If I'm a cotton trader and I have borrowed from the bank, then the bank must insist that I go to a futures exchange, maize or soybean or whatever commodity, that I should hedge and produce proof that I have hedged. I think that is the least that banks can do. But I think the call lies with Reserve Bank of India. Maybe all of us must talk about it, create public awareness, and bring pressure to further reform this market. No, I think point very well taken. Banks have a very, very critical critical role to play. I'll go into the chat box. It's about 6:35. Not that we are in a great hurry to finish it, but we also have to be mindful of the time. Request you to post your questions. Okay, all that. Will I get where will I get information about FDC? And can you please share the list of centers?
Right, sir. So the list is available with us. If you can have the contact number sent of the question, we can get in touch with them to tell them which is the nearest FTC.
Yeah.
And even if not collaborate, they can go to see how it functions. So sure.
Reshma should post the ID, email ID, and possibly, I don't know, Suresh, if you are open, you can post your email ID on the chat box so that you can connect with each other. Yes, a PPT with a briefing about these initiatives would be very helpful. Okay, where will we get exact information about La Nina monsoon? Madhura is asking. Air Marshal.
Actually, our website, skymetweather.com, www. Weekly basis, I myself, I write on that. If not weekly, at least a fortnightly. I keep updating the status and what are the conditions there. And the last week itself, this Saturday, Sunday or so, that was a fresh article which we have given. And as I said, every time, every week, particularly in the monsoon season, we keep updating. And we, in case anybody has got any other comments and clarification, that option is also there. So kindly go through of website.
Thank you. I think SkyMet is one source of information. Let me share one more source of information, but let me make it clear. I am not here to promote the Hindu Business Line, but the Hindu Business Line paper is one of the finest coverages of weather across the world. We have some specialists covering it within our editorial team, and reading Hindu Business Lines and the weather outlook and weather forecast will give you very good insight into a phenomena like La Nina, El Nino, and anything else. But again, with due respect, I'm not. Please don't assume I'm promoting the paper. I'm associated with the paper, yes, certainly, but I want to just inform that here is a source of information. Okay, can you please explain the role of futures rollover in further contract which is illiquid in hedging? Maybe Eileen can talk about that.
So basically, if you look at, we definitely normally 3 to 4 months contract are reasonably liquid. So in Indian situation, when you are planning to roll over to the near month to mid month or far month, they are liquid. That's point number one. Point number two, and as the near month is getting to expiry, automatically people start rolling over. The liquidity builds up in the far month contracts as well. So I don't think that would be a challenge. And if the person question is, I'm sure if they're looking at the market, if you look at N charts, you will get the whole ladder also in terms of liquidity of various months. So this will help you to know exactly how is the liquidity and what kind of orders are standing. One of the measure of liquidity in the marketplace. I hope that.
Thank you. Thank you. There's one more question. Will MSP prices be higher or market prices? There are.
That's for you.
Different crops, for which there are different MSPs. We are here not to what should I say, guess or estimate or speculate on prices. And certainly the exchange personnel shall not look at prices and make any price forecast. But all that I can say, given the monsoon situation, given the crop conditions, given global cues, etc., I will not be surprised if oil seeds and pulses prices, open market prices, remain above the minimum support price. That's the
I will just with your permission, I will just add, because nobody knows, it's better to be hedged. As nobody knows the price is going to be, so it's better to be hedged rather than speculating on which would be higher or lower.
Exactly. And when you hedge, what are you doing? You are actually protecting your existing built-in profit margin. And if you don't hedge, even that existing profit margin 5% or 10%, whatever you have built into your pricing, even that can be lost. And that is why to protect your existing profit margins, you need to hedge, which is extremely important. And not many people actually realize how critical it is. But it's a process. We need to keep communicating, talking, educating people, which is what NCDEX has been doing all the time. And this will certainly continue. Very informative event. Thank you very much. I think we have come to the end of this webinar. Before I hand over the mic to Ashish Barwale, Chairman, Agribusiness Committee of IMC, from my side as a moderator or as a co-panelist, a co-speaker, I just want to say a big thank you to Air Marshal Sharma, my friend Suresh Devnani, and of course Alain Mukherjee for sharing your thoughts. And now I leave it to Mr. Ashish Barwale to propose a vote of thanks. And I also want to thank Anita, of course, for organizing this. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. A big thank you to everyone present, the panelists, the speakers, the IMC team for a very lively and intellectual discussion, I felt. I think that each of the panelists, starting with Air Vice Marshal Sharma, Mr. Devnani, and Mr. Mukherjee, highlighted all the key risks that agriculture and farmers face, whether it be weather risk or financial risk or price risk. And I think they have shared various ways in which we can moderate, the risk that is faced by farmers, whether it be having more information on weather predictions or having access to more stable financial products, easy access, cheap access, or whether it's locking in prices through hedging. So I think that as the industry matures, I think the value of each of these tools for farmers will continue to grow. We've seen it in other countries, and it's really great that different constituents of the agri value chain can come together and share their viewpoints on how we can help grow agriculture in this country and take it to its true potential. So I thank everyone for joining, for asking questions, for the lively debate, and I hope that we can continue this discussion on making agriculture more productive for India, for its farmers, and for its citizens. Thank you very much, and we look forward to engaging with you as we do more such sessions at the Agribusiness IMC Committee as we go ahead in the year. Thanks again, and I hope everyone has a good week ahead.
God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.